We believe that being a defender requires more than building shooting skills on a range. It's also a development of the heart, mind, body, and spirit. Join us as we explore what it truly means to be a defender in your training and in your everyday life. Welcome to Defenders Live.
Of course I have an itchy nose. This never happens.
What does it mean when you have an itchy nose?
You're going to have a fight. Some people would say, well, how could you teach a blind person? Well, there's a lot to it. She's probably one of the smartest students I've taught because she's so sensitive there. She could tell the difference by putting her finger in the chamber of a SIG versus a Glock. This is like a lesson for me. I'm either going to make it or break. They said, you better not quit. You better not quit.
I remember that.
So I struggled with it for about 24 hours. and then I decided, I'm not going to let that one person's opinion drive me off the cliff, because this is what I was called to do. I feel God called me to do this, and this person isn't going to determine my fate in this.
Okay, I'm going to take you off the screen and then I get all professional, okay?
Okay. Good luck.
There's something about you. Oh, okay. All right, guys. Tonight I want to introduce you to one of my dearest friends, Trish Reiss. Trish has been a friend of mine since I think I met her in 2016, and we'll get into the details a little bit later. But Trish was my very first handgun instructor. When I decided to reach out to somebody and take a class, my first basic handgun class, she was one of the instructors. And luckily, I was able to be supervised one-on-one with Trish the very first time I ever shot a handgun. So it was a really fun time, but I was super scared in the moment, and she put me at ease. She was kind. She was patient with me and very calming as a teacher, which is exactly what I needed in the moment. And what I really loved the most about her was that even after we had done the live fire portion of the class, even though I really looked up to her, I couldn't believe there was a woman instructor in the class. She was very approachable. And every time I would ask a question, she never made me feel stupid about the questions I would ask. And so that just slowly developed into a relationship. And over the years, we've become really, really close. She kind of took me under her wing, and I'll be forever grateful to her for the start that she gave me. And she was even one of the people that encouraged me to become an instructor, which had never crossed my mind prior to her bringing that up. So she's a huge encourager of mine, a huge supporter. She always has been, and her husband Peter as well. They're just two people with the biggest heart you'll ever meet. And so I just want to introduce you to her. She has a lot of wisdom. She's been through some things, and she's got a lot to bring to the table. So I'm going to bring Trish onto the show now. Hey, Trish.
Hey, Laura.
So I wasn't sure how to introduce you, but I just thought, well, let's start at the beginning, right? Because we've known each other for a while, but not a super long time.
Yeah.
Pretty much since you moved here to Montana.
Right, which was 2016. I think we met in the spring of 2017.
Okay, you have a better memory than I do. No, I don't. So before the show, Trish and I were in our little pre-meeting, and we got I don't know if you ever got the giggle bug when you were a kid and you had a sleepover. Trish and I, we do that sometimes. And anyway, so we were trying to get on a straight face and be all professional for you, but we just love each other, and we're silly sometimes. So that, I don't know if that comes out, it comes out. So I guess the best thing to do, Trish, is I want to let people know that you are a credentialed instructor, that you are a lifelong learner, that I'd love to let people know about why you started as an instructor, your background in New York, because you came
Mhm.
from New York, which is so wild to me. Um, and you are somebody who continues to learn all the time. That's one thing that I really love about you. And you're always trying to seek out new people, new information, and from all sides of the coin, right? And bring that to your students. And so that's something I really appreciate about you. But where did this all begin? Where did the firearms thing begin for you?
Well, yes, I'm from New York, and that is not where I learned about firearms per se. Not in the city. I was born in Staten Island, the forgotten borough. A good reason for that. Um, we we moved upstate New York in the 90s, and I stay-home mom with my kids and went back to work. I got a job at the county clerk's office, and from there, I was assigned to handle the pistol licensing and became the pistol licensing clerk. So that was all new to me, not really knowing anything about guns. No one in Staten Island hunted or owned guns. You couldn't have a firearm for personal protection on Staten Island. It was very difficult to get a permit. But working in the county clerk's office opened up a door for me to begin learning about firearms, meeting really awesome people. No one in my office liked to wait on the customers that wanted to add pistols to their permit. You had to register every gun that you bought, and if you sold one, you had to take that off your permit too.
Wow.
So it was data entry for me, but I really clicked with the customers, and we became, friends over the counter. We talk about their new gun and this and that, and they kept urging me to get my permit so that I could shoot. And so finally, after probably 4 years of working there, my husband was not into firearms, did not want a gun in the house, but I finally convinced him that I wanted, to practice shooting, and bought my first Walther P22. And it sat in my closet for 6 months before I took it out,
Wow.
because I had nobody to teach me. And it was a little bit scary for me because I sort of was going against, my home life of my husband not wanting a gun,
Yeah.
and then having the gun and not knowing how to use it. I just had this torn. I was
Yeah.
torn between doing right and not doing right.
Yeah.
Um, from a very Christian background, which does have some stuff to do with it, but he was just not into firearms. Um, so I guess jump ahead a little bit. My house was broken into twice, and actually
Wow.
3 times, twice in the house, and once they stole our firewood. But all my jewelry was taken, and I had come home from work, walked in the house, saw my jewelry spread all over the floor, and I knew something was wrong. Uh, and I thought that the cellar door shut because of the pressure of opening the front door. And
Uh-huh.
actually, probably what it was that person that was in my house stealing, because the jewelry was just strewn right down the steps. So I actually entered the house while he was still in the house. Didn't know it. I had my gun, but it was in a safe, and I didn't really know how to use it very well at the time. But we were not allowed to carry it at work, so I didn't have it on my person. So that sort of scared me into really getting proficient with my firearm, and then starting to carry. So I actually was able to ask the county clerk through a bunch of red tape if I could carry, and it was approved that I could ask for permission, but they wouldn't give it to me. Is basically how they responded to that, because they couldn't deny me, but they didn't want to give me permission,
Weird.
which would have, put them in a liability situation, I guess. So that's why. But anyway, through that, long story short, I worked for years, met a lot of people, became very burdened for the women that were coming in with their husbands to get firearms because they didn't really want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
They didn't want to own guns. They didn't want to learn about them. They just wanted to have them listed on their permit. So if something happened to the husband, the guns would not go to the state. So that was my kind of eye-opening, what are they going to do? They're just going to, let all these guns sit there, and what if their husbands come home, leave the gun, they don't know how to empty it, they don't know how to work it.
Right.
It to me, it was just like, after I went through that, I didn't want to see other women go through it, and there were hundreds of them. I mean, almost every wife I knew had anywhere from 20 to 100 guns listed on the permit that they were responsible for.
That they
And
didn't know anything about.
right, because in New York, you couldn't handle a firearm at all until you got your permit. So it was backwards. You had to take a basic pistol course. They literally crossed out NRA because it wasn't an NRA course, because you couldn't live fire. Then it would go to the judge, you'd get approved, then you come into the office, see me. I do the paperwork and issue the permit. And then you go pick up your gun. So that's what happened to me. I got my Walther. I walked out of the gun store and I'm like, I don't know what to do with it. I had taken my pistol license course 6 months prior, and the guy wasn't even in town anymore. He had moved away. And so that's why I was like, who do I go to?
Well, what did you do?
So my buddy Keith, who he's actually was a contestant on Top Shot, he was one of the pistol permit customers, client, whatever you want to call him.
Oh.
And he came in. He was just out of Afghanistan. He came out of the army. And he was super excited to get his new gun. He asked me if I had my permit. I said, yes. He said, do you shoot? I said, not really. He said, well, why don't you come to the farm and I'll teach you? So, I mean, this was like a 24 kid, so it was like, okay, I'll go. So I did. And then the next, we did one lesson for 2 hours. And then the next time I went over, he's like, why don't we go shoot competition? So I was like, okay.
Wow. You went from one lesson to let's shoot competition.
Yeah. And let me back up. When I brought my Walther 22, he said, leave that in the car. And he let me use a Smith & Wesson 9 M&P, which technically it was not on my permit, but he was in custody of the gun. So anyway, I shot that, did very well, practicing with it. And then we went to this competition and I was super stoked. I did horribly, but it was so much fun.
Yeah.
So when I came home, I said, hey, can we do this here in Hudson? He's like, well, I can help you get started with it, but I'm not into the politics. So I'll set you up and introduce you to some people and you can get it going. So I did. And because I was the pistol licensing clerk, I had hundreds of people to interact with.
Right.
We started with about 15, and within a couple of months, we had 20, 25 people coming out every single Thursday night to shoot IDPA for about 2 years. And that's when I stepped aside to do something different.
But when did you become an instructor then? I'm confused about that.
So let's see.
Or how did you get to that point?
Okay.
Because I don't want to jump a gap here if this is important in between.
Right. So I became an instructor after shooting IDPA. So we had a lady who was the regional rep. Her name's Kitty. She's a wonderful, wonderful lady. She came and she taught the safety officer program for the IDPA group that wanted to participate. We were just a club match. We weren't sanctioned matches or anything. But she came in and several of us became safety officers. And from there, because of the interest, and we were trying to get people, because there were only 2 girls besides me, and we wanted to reach out. But I felt like I need to learn more to teach people, because the girls don't know how to shoot, but they want to. So they were kind of like me before. Yeah. So I was like, let me get my pistol instructor license, and then I can start teaching people, and then we can put them in IDPA, and we can, get rolling like
it seems like everything is backwards in New York.
It is. And I'm probably talking too fast. And
no, it's fine.
But it was one of the best experiences I've ever had, because the people were so generous with sharing knowledge, making sure you had the right gear, making sure you, they cheer you on. If you didn't have ammo, they'd give you ammo. They were just a great group of people, and we had so much fun. It was just great fun. That's where I met Peter. So in between there was a divorce in between there, and
I have to hear that story.
Okay,
because Peter
he's awesome.
He is awesome.
So we were I advertised IDPA at the local club. And when I went to the following Monday, it was our second meeting. I think we did it on Mondays at first, and then we switched to Thursdays. But I I advertised it and then found out there was a club meeting and like their monthly meeting. So they said we can't shoot, we can't use the range because there's too many people coming and going. So the range was closed on meeting night. So I was like, oh, great. Now all these people are going to show up and I'm not going to be there and I'm going to look like a jerk because I'm advertising this shooting match, right? So I went down there anyway and stood in the parking lot, and anybody who came in for IDPA, I would talk to them. I gave them flyers. I said, come back next week. And Peter came with his son, and we just got talking, and he was like, oh, what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm the pistol licensing clerk. So he whips out his pistol permit from like 1920. And it was all tattered and everything. He actually got his permit when he was 17. The judge,
no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which was kind of funny story there too, but we won't go there. And so he came back the next week, and then he came into the clerk's office to update his permit, to get it. We had started doing.
Oh, I see. Okay. Do you think that's really what he was doing, Trish?
Back then, yeah.
Okay.
But he was very faithful and came to classes almost every week. He was there. Met my friend Debbie, helped me out because I wasn't really into like the socializing, reaching out, even though a lot of people knew who I was kind of shy, and she was
really
this boisterous person that could just bring people in and organize stuff really easy and knew how to use the computers and digital stuff. So she became my right-hand man, so to speak. And we got that ball rolling pretty good, did the safety officer. And from there, we decided to host a basic pistol course. Sorry,
okay.
My thing around. So we did that. I think there were 11 or 13 of us who became instructors, which we were basically sanctioned by the county. So we were able to teach the basic course for permit applicants. And then after about 2 years is when I really was burdened for these women, because we still weren't bringing women in. And I said, ladies like to do what they're comfortable with and do things with friends, and they like fashion, they like all the stuff. What could we do? And I was struggling with trying to find concealed carry holsters at the time.
Yeah.
You go into the store and the gun shops, the old guys back there with their whiskey bottles, and it's like, yeah, the holsters are on the back wall, OWB, appendix. Like, I didn't know what those initials meant. We had no one.
The acronyms. Oh yeah, the endless acronyms.
and they were all like Safari Land or DeSantis, leather holsters, or just nothing that really would fit a woman for dressing the way we do and working and stuff like that. So long story short, we got a whole bunch of women together, and I said, I'm going to do a little fashion show at my house. So everybody bring their box of holsters and we'll try to figure it out. And not even knowing like there was stuff that was fitted. This was back in 2012.
Yeah.
And I had so many people interested that we moved it to the gun club, and then it got moved to a firehouse, and then it got moved to a bigger firehouse. We had 250 people show up for the first women's concealed carry fashion show. It was in Churchtown, New York. And it's not a funny thing, but coincidentally, the Aurora movie theater shooting was the night before the fashion show. So it was scary because I knew that the press was going to be there, and I knew there was going to be a big, because we had posters and signs all over the county. I mean, people just kept asking, they wanted to come. We had to close the doors because we had 50 people waiting outside in the firehouse hall.
Wow.
And it was packed. We couldn't get anybody else in there. Gabby Franco was there. She was one of our speakers.
That's so cool.
And anyway, so we had a gal come, and she kind of primed us for the press in case they ask questions. Make sure you answer, because it's going to go all over the news, and this could really totally, ruin everything we've worked so hard to do with this fashion show to draw women. And we did it to educate the ladies so that we could get them in, use the fashion show, use the runway, and then here's the lawyer going to talk about use of force and the law in New York, and here's somebody talk about situational awareness. And
That's
so
a great idea.
we got all these different people together. We talked about pepper spray. We had little demos. We had vendors. It was great.
Wow.
And then the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association president, Tom King, came, and he said to me, "This is a $1 million moneymaker, and this is the best idea I've seen in a long, long time." He's like, "You need to market this." And I was going through divorce, and I'm like, I'm not a business person. This is a one and done for me. I can't do something like this. I just can't pursue that business. And a year and a half later, we had another one. We had 450 people there. They sponsored us, and they helped us along. They got the NRA to come and do a video of the fashion show in 2014. And that was up near Albany, New York. So that was pretty awesome to have that many people come for something like that. And Carrie Lightfoot came to that one.
That's cool.
To back up a little. So I was teaching women already. And before we did the first fashion show, I had met Carrie online because I was trying to find out, how do you conceal carry? I was on the internet. She had just started her blog. Mm-hmm. She hadn't started the chapters yet. So then over those next 2 years before she came out to speak at our fashion show, she helped me along the way. And I became a chapter leader in New York. And then when I moved to Montana, I started a chapter here, which we're still running. Now it's Armed Women of America. And I'm a chapter member of the Girl and the Gun with the E-chapter, which you're going to the conference too. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
There's going to be so many good people there. I can't wait. So
yeah, we've got another road trip planned. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing that Trish and I do once in a while. Not as much anymore, but she's kind of my battle buddy that way. I mean, I remember one time I wanted to go on a trip to Colorado, and it was like last minute, and I called you and said, "Will you go with me?" And so we went down there.
That was a very important trip.
Yeah, it actually was. It was really, really fun. And so, yeah, Trish is one of those people over the years that has proven over and over and over again how big her heart is, how reliable she is, how much she cares about people. And I think that's a big part of your mission, isn't it, Trish? I mean, you talked about how when you first started, there just weren't people, or you didn't know who to reach out to. Mm-hmm. And instead of sitting on the sidelines and complaining about what wasn't available, you decided to step up and do something. And that's what you've done over and over and over again. So when you came to Montana, you kind of did the same thing. You said, what is there? Where is there a need? And how can I help fill that need? Right. Mm-hmm. Which is how you met me.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was just taking I guess the Montana pistol course just to kind of convert my New York permit over, which you didn't need to do that, but we took the course anyway because I was curious what was going on at the range that was offering the class. And the instructor, the lead instructor, asked me, what my background was, and he said they were looking for a female instructor. So we talked for a bit. I came to a few more classes, and then he hired me part-time. And that was probably in the very beginning of 2017. And I think I met you shortly after that when you came to your class.
Yeah.
So it was a real blessing because we just clicked. I mean, I remember you, we were shooting to the north, which there's no.
I remember that too. Yeah.
I was like, there's not a huge berm over here, but confident. And you were so mad at yourself because you weren't hitting the quarter size hole in the target. And I'm like,
I don't remember that.
This girl needs to get herself out of the way because
still working on that.
You were so upset. You were doing so well. You were such a good student and you're so curious, and everything was perfect, but except you maybe were a couple inches out. I mean, there were a couple flinches in the very beginning, but
yeah.
You really did well. And immediately I could see that you were a good learner, a good student, and that you were probably going to be a good teacher. Never thinking that was going to go that way. But then you kept coming back for more classes.
I know. I just would never left. I kept coming back. I couldn't get enough.
I think we did an article for IDPA competitive shooting, and we photos of you, and we offered that class, the intro to down, what was it, 6 weeks to Down Zero or something. And then you came out and did some photographs for that too.
Yeah.
And you just became part of the crew. And then I said to Sal, you know, this girl, she'd be an awesome instructor. She should come on board. And you were really new. So too new probably to be an instructor at the time. But that I knew that you had it in you to do that. And so we did the RSO class. I think you took the basic pistol from NRA and kind of got the ball rolling.
Yeah. And this is the thing. This is what I love about when God brings people into your life for a reason. It's usually the biggest friends and mentors I have in my life see things, and I see things in you too. This goes both ways. You see things in others that they don't see in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And you bring it to light, because there's been many times where we've had discussions and you've said things to me of what you've observed.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, really? Either I do that, or really you think that? Because we don't think about ourselves the way others or perceive ourselves the way others perceive us. And so that's been a huge blessing and a huge gift, because you've kind of you took me under your wing and you've helped develop that. You saw the strengths and helped me work on weaknesses, and just kind of like, I don't know what that is, but you have a special gift in doing that with people.
Well, I think I look at it more like networking. God puts me in a place, and then he's like, go over there and tell this person this thing. Like, it just seems like he intertwines people that I meet through me somehow. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
you're like the great connector.
We definitely, have, like, I remember when we went to Gunsight, and I'm like, man, she's so good. Like, I don't
so much fun
being the best instructor because I taught you how to shoot. I do take credit for introducing you to, but you had it in you the whole time.
Yeah, but I didn't see it.
Well, I think because you had some fear, just general overall fear, and that's your it's kind of your story of why you came for personal protection, because you were afraid, and that led you there.
Yeah.
And then it was just a matter of, you wanted it to be, I think, like, I need to solidify this so I feel safe. And you realized just having a gun isn't going to make you safe, but learning all the other things and the situational awareness. And I that phrase is so overused, but we know what it really means, to be aware, to avoid if at all possible, and the mental part of it. And you have all of that. So you just had to kind of get the shooting part out of the way. And now you just like blossomed. You just like took off. And I'm so proud of you. And
I don't know what happened.
We talk about you all the time. We watch your show. I'll say almost every time. If we miss it, we make up for it. I might have missed a few. I'll have to go back and see which one.
It's okay. You don't have to watch every single show.
No, that's okay. I have my little book here too that I started with my Lora.
Oh my gosh.
That's my little Thor notebook, because that's your little nickname.
What do you use that for?
To write my notes after your shows, or during your shows, I should say. Yeah.
Okay.
So I copy that from Peter, because he's the note taker.
He's a note taker, yeah. Yeah.
But then when you started working with Defenders, it was hard for me to let you go, so to speak. But
yeah, that was a hard transition.
Because of some conflicts and stuff, that it put a little bit of a wall there, but not between us personally, just with work. Yeah. And I'm just so proud that you're able to be doing what you're doing, because you are so valuable. You have no idea how many people's lives you've touched. We talked about the other day with this the new Maggie that we have. She just, I don't know if she found you from one of the gals talking about Defenders Live, and she watched it one time and she's hooked. She just goes around telling everybody, carries flyers around about Defenders.
That is so crazy to hear.
So, and if she's doing it, other people are doing it too, all over, because you've got your audience all over the country. So, and there'll be more, because if the show turns out and I don't totally botch it and you put it on the air, then my friends back in New York will watch it and see my
Say New York again.
New York. If I talk to my niece Lauren, forget it. If my sister,
Forget about it. Or how do you say that?
I just say forget about it. But sometimes it comes out more than others.
Well, I think it's funny that we're doing a show about Trish, and yet Trish turns it around and starts talking about how great and wonderful I am. This is just your nature. You're not good at tooting your own horn, which is part of the reason why I think I should toot it for you. Because you are usually you're the more quiet person in the background that really lifts people up quietly,
Mm-hmm.
and you never step to the front and want to take credit for anything. And I honestly think that that trait is so important as a leader, to do the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing and not caring who gets credit for it. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing I've noticed about you.
Well, did we talk about Maggies yet? Not really.
Well, no, yeah, you've mentioned it, but tell everybody how that came to be and what that is.
So I work with a group of women that we've coined the name the Montana Maggies.
Oh yeah, and I have the sweatshirt on right here.
Yeah, which
Maggies.
Yeah, Maggies.
Yeah,
and Maggies back there on the wall too. The real Maggies back there.
Yeah.
So through my teaching at MTFI, Montana Tactical, where I work, I started to realize how important, especially after seeing Lora really take off, because I'm like, she's already a better shooter than me. I better get on the ball. So I said, but I want to be a good teacher too. So I do care how I shoot, but I want to be able to instruct and help people. And so I started taking some more classes, away from where I live, just going to nationally recognized instructors. And there was one class, actually it was in Missoula in Montana. And so it was instructor development. And I was a little bit afraid of taking it because I didn't know if the prereq met where I was at. And a couple of people that are instructors say, no, you're more than qualified. So I took the class. Turns out, and this was a turning point for me. So we're not going to cry in the class.
It's okay.
On the TV.
I cry all the time
on the podcast. So I took the course and I totally bombed out. According to the instructor, I was the worst instructor he had ever seen, and humiliated me in front of 23 men and one other girl who was in my class. The good thing was I didn't cry. I was like, whatever, that's his opinion. I don't think I'm the worst one. Maybe I botched it a little bit, but he had us running a line of 24 students, which I would never do by myself.
Wow.
And I didn't have a loud voice. So I'm like trying to yell because somebody's flailing around with their gun. And they literally had me like running back and forth like a chicken with my head shut. And I don't know if that was planned or what, but I just was like, this stunk, But out of that, I met my little brother, James, from Warfighters.
Oh, I love him.
My BFF, and he has been like a godsend to me in helping me stay on track and encouraging me to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And
James was on the show.
Yes, James was on the show.
Yeah.
And the reason I stuck it out was because on my way home, I did cry on my 3-hour drive home, not the whole time, but I was going to quit. I'm like, I stink. I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to do this. If this person thinks I'm the worst instructor in the world, he's a nationally known instructor. He can just blast that all over the world and I'll never teach again. And I didn't do anything unsafe because afterwards I asked for like a review, a face-to-face review. What could I have done better? What did I do wrong? It was supposed to be constructive criticism. And basically I did all the talking and said, I don't think I was prepared for this class. And I think the prerequisites were not written correctly according to what you taught. I would have not taken the class had I, if it was different. Anyway, all was said and good. I shook their hands, I left. And then on the way home, decided I probably shouldn't be teaching anymore. And when I got home, the couple of ladies that I was working with said, how was your instruction? I told them they all wanted to go after
Beat him
this
up.
instructor. And they were like, we will never listen to him again, blah, blah. I was like, no, that's fine. This is like a lesson for me. I'm either going to make it or break. They said, you better not quit. You better not quit.
I remember that.
So I struggled with it for about 24 hours. and then I decided, I'm not going to let that one person's opinion drive me off the cliff, because this is what I was called to do. I feel God called me to do this, and this person isn't going to determine my fate in this. And so that's when I really got serious and started studying, watching different instructors, reading, going to classes, learning, and then sharing it. So I decided, instead of me just learning and teaching basic pistol, I'm going to grab these women who want to train and invite them for free to come to the range and work with them. And then I could help them, and I can learn by teaching, and they can learn, from being instructed and coached. And
well, that's basically, you're like putting the reps in, is kind of what you're talking about.
So it wasn't just sitting in the classroom, getting the knowledge and being like static and not doing anything about it. And so the group grew from about, I don't know, we started with maybe 5 or 6, and we have 20 women who have been Maggies. Some of them no longer can come because they work or they've moved away, but we have probably regularly 12 women ages in their 20s up to their 80s who come every single week, rain, shine, snow, ice, thunder. They're there. So and I live the closest. I'm 10 minutes away. So I have to show up no matter what. They drive, some of them, an hour and 15 minutes to get there. It's amazing. And you know them. You've worked with them. You've taught with them. Their
dedication is remarkable.
Yeah.
They're a truly special group of women that you've put together. But they're all there because of you, Trish.
Well, yeah, I believe God put them together. But we're called the Montana Maggies because we call her Mama Maggie. She's one of the older ones, octogenarian. She showed up the first day with her battle belt on, and she had about 6 magazines full to capacity. Well, that's important. In 16 rounds here, you would be illegal in New York. Capacity, high capacity, whatever. She had her magazines packed out, and then she had her range bag had another 6 or 8 magazines full.
Yeah.
And so she had all these magazines on her belt. So I started calling her Maggie, and it stuck. And so then we came up with an official name, because we said, we are a serious group of women. We're a female training group. We're going to be called the Montana Maggies, and it stuck. And then that poster behind me there, Peter's grandfather's was an artist in Montana, Trish Reiss, and he did that illustration for Detective Magazine. And I happened to come across it while I was looking for a logo. And I was like, didn't your grandfather ever paint anything? Because he's pretty famous out here, with a gun in it, and I kept searching. And that picture, I was like, that's perfect. So it's like from the 1930s Detective Magazine. So we got clearance from all the copyright stuff. There's no copyright and whatnot. And then we use that for our logo. And that's Maggie. And that's
really cool.
She's our mascot.
That's really cool. Well, let's talk about, or did we miss anything? Was there anything left out that we, before I keep going here?
No, I will say that with the Maggies, just real quick, is that some of the girls that came to Maggies, the women, they were dangerous. And I don't mean that in a good way.
Yeah.
Well, I had to kind of split my time between training people who were safe and wanting to learn, to like 100% attention on a couple of the ladies to start with. And they don't mind my saying that, because look at them today. They are now shooting, they can clear dot torture at 3 and almost 5. And they can shoot, bullseyes. They've taken some of Adam's classes. It's just amazing where these women have gone.
And that's what I love about you, Trish, is that you don't give up on people. A lot of instructors, they would see women, especially older women, and it's just the truth. And they're not quite performing, and they don't give them enough time or latitude. They just
Mhm.
don't have patience with them.
Mhm.
If it's not that they can't do it, it's just
Right.
that they haven't done it yet, you know?
Mhm.
And I don't know why my light's blinking, but sorry about that. There's a short in it. But yeah, you will pull them aside and you will spend whatever time it takes to get them where they need to be, which is really rare.
Yeah.
Really rare.
Well, and there's a lot of guy instructors too, like they mean well, and there's nothing negative that I say about some of them. Just they don't. You're right. They don't have the patience, or they don't understand. Like for some women, they need to be told like 5 or 10 times the same thing, or 5 or 10 weeks the same thing in a row.
Yeah.
And eventually, they'll get it. And I just won't give up on them because I felt like in my past, my life was like that, and I don't want to see people suffer with that when there's no need to. So if I can help
Especially
her,
when they're willing, you
that's
know?
true.
And
I mean,
a lot of them are hungry to learn. They really
mhm,
want the help. They just probably have a hard time finding someone they're comfortable with too, wouldn't you
mhm.
say?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I've taught a completely blind woman very
Oh,
recently,
yeah,
this
I've seen the
lady,
pictures.
and she had a situation where she was beat up, and her boyfriend was put in prison, and he's out now, and so that
Wow.
was a scary situation. And some people would say, well, how could you teach a blind person? Well, there's a lot to it. I mean, she knows that if she's in her house, she's going to be in a certain spot, aiming in a certain direction. Her
Mhm.
kids, she knows where her kids going. She's got all that. She's probably one of the smartest students I've taught because she's so sensitive there. She could tell the difference by putting her finger in the chamber, right, of a SIG versus a Glock 9. Now they're both
Wow.
9 barrels, but you could tell by the shape of the ramp when she put her finger in there to check if it was
Wow.
clear. I'm like, this girl is amazing. And then she shot, 7 yards away on a silhouette target, and she might have missed 1 or 2 when she first started. We were throwing rocks at the target so she could tell where it was, and her hearing was able
Uh-huh.
to direct her because we had to work with her a real lot to get that motion and those neural pathways to work to see where she presents the gun. So she knows that she can't just be anywhere in her house because she knows I have to go to one spot and be there. And if he comes in to attack me, I'm
Wow.
going to hear him come that way. So she's already got a plan. you know,
Okay,
she,
but I have a question, and maybe this is a dumb question, but
Mhm.
how does that work? And I know you're not a lawyer, but then how would that work about being able to identify your threat? Does that mean he needs to say something?
Probably, yeah. And so
Yeah.
we talked about that because yes, I'm not a lawyer, and I
Neither
I
am I.
even was like a little nervous teaching her at first, but the
Yeah.
co-instructor I had, she's like, no, she's already cleared all this stuff, and she needs to protect herself just like everybody else does.
Mhm.
Now she's got a little 6-year-old, so that's a scary thing,
Mhm.
Now mom's got a gun, but she has people that live in the house with her too, so she's not
Mhm.
completely on her own. But there is a plan in place, and sure enough, um, he's already contacted her. So it's a serious situation, and all that need to be informed are informed about everything going on. Um, but it was scary to teach a person like that in the very beginning. But it made me realize, there's a lot of people that need, adaptive learning.
Mhm.
They need instruction for wheel. I've done wheelchairs and walkers, and I taught a girl who she didn't have a trigger finger. And
Mm.
she was on the line, and I came over and I was like, "You need to take your middle finger off the trigger. Just use your." So I was on her left side. There's a big line of people. It was during a well-armed women night, and she's kind of laughing at me, and I'm like, and I go over to the other side, and she doesn't have a finger, and I'm like, "Oh, okay. All right,
Yeah.
what do you do now?" So, okay, and she said, "I want to be a police officer and I'm going to the academy next month and I don't want to get kicked out because they're going to tell me I can't shoot." She goes, "I'm going to prove them wrong." And sure enough, I worked with her and she did fine. And I think she's a captain now. This was years ago, but
Wow.
so it was like, there's different situations that those people, you know, they need to know how to shoot just
Yes.
as well. And some people won't have the patience, some people don't have the knowledge. How do you teach them? But
Right.
I find that really interesting. And
I think those are some of the most inspiring stories. One of my most fulfilling moments as an instructor was something similar to that in one of my classes, where they had a trigger finger, but they couldn't use it. They had to use their middle finger. So it was very similar, but they also had almost no use of their entire left arm.
Wow.
So figuring out a way for her to rack the slide. She ended up figuring out a safe way to do it, because she could basically use her right arm as a meat hook, so to speak. I mean, it had a tiny bit of feeling in it, but not enough to do anything. So to rack the slide, she had to, I'm trying to think.
On her belt or shoe or something?
No, she bent her leg, I think, and so the gun
Oh,
was pointed in a safe direction, but she used her leg, her left arm to hold the gun, and then she racked it with her right arm, and then had to transition the gun back into a right hand again, and then use her middle finger to pull the trigger. And honest to goodness, I mean, how many times have people, I know what you're going to say, but as it's like such a good conversation. I love it when this happens. Never judge a book by its cover, because how many times have we been in class and we think we know which people are going to be a problem, which people are not going to be good shooters or be good shooters. You cannot tell. And so I love it whenever underdogs prevail. That's one of my most favorite things. And so when I watched this woman in class, it forced me as an instructor to think differently, because okay, here's how we say that we must do this, but she can't do it that way. Does that mean she can't do it at all? No. And so she found a way to adapt. And I told her, she's like, is it okay if I do? And this was all with dry guns at first, because I wanted to see what we're dealing with. And she's like, well, what about this? And she tried. I said, well, everything's safe. As long as you're safe, try what works for you. And lo and behold, I mean, that woman ended up out shooting almost everyone in the class.
Wow.
And isn't that the way that it usually works? The underdogs always prevail. So do you have any stories like that? Because those are so heartwarming. I love it.
Well, I mean, the Regina stories I have.
Oh yeah.
She's well, the best time for that, comparing that situation of being the underdog, was she wanted to shoot an AR-15. So
tell people who Regina is, though.
Regina is one of our Maggies. She's Swiss. She's the sweetest person. She's hard knocks.
She is stubborn as like crazy.
Stubborn.
Yeah.
But she wanted to shoot the AR-15, but she didn't want to shoot the 223. So we talked her into getting a 9, and I mean a 22. She wanted the 22. We'd go through this whole class. The very last.
And how old is she?
She's 80 now.
Okay.
80. She was probably 78 at the time, and she ran through the 8-hour class in the summer. Gets to the last. We had the VTAC targets. She's shooting through the top and the side and the windows and underneath. So she gets on the ground and she goes to take her magazine out, and she slipped. So she was done shooting and the gun was actually empty, but she went to get up and take the mag out, and she slipped and fell, and she got a black eye. That was on Saturday, and she showed up to Maggie's on Tuesday. And I mean, her face was black and blue, crazy. So we took a picture and sent it to her kids. She has 8 kids. Look what grandma's doing now. She sent to the grandkids,
Yeah.
But she just keeps coming back. And a few times she was going to quit. She had some safety violations, and we had to kind of, I think you might've been there for one of them. And it was like, you got to leave. And is she going to be okay? Is she mentally okay to do this? She's getting older. And she worked through it. She stayed away for a while and worked on some things. And she's very focused when she comes now. She's so happy. She just thanks God every day for this group of women, and that she can shoot. And she gave up her long arm sewing machine quilt making for shooting. I think she's got like 6 guns now.
Oh, I love it.
All her kids and grandkids shooting.
And all of the Maggies are that way. Very determined, very loyal women that have big hearts, would do anything for anyone. And I think that's what I miss the most about being able to go. I mean, the shooting's fun too. It really is, to be able to go there on a weekly basis and get some rounds down range. But the camaraderie
Right.
is
Yeah.
next level. I mean,
Everybody's got everybody's back.
yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
sincere. It is.
Yeah.
It's been, and for the older ladies, I'm going to say we have 3 that are either 78, 79, 80. And we have some 60-year-olds, a couple 50-year-olds, maybe one 40-year-old. And we actually have 3 new girls who are in their 20s, which I love because I love having the mix. And Vicky says, well, that's because we're going to be knocked off one by one pretty soon. And you won't have any Maggies left. So, but they are the best group. And they love training with you guys too, with defenders. I think most of them have been to at least one class. And so we look forward to more out here.
Yep. And they can hang with everybody. I mean, the age is not a thing on the range with them. I mean, no matter what the obstacles are, those women can overcome. That's what I love the most about them. So, and they never complain about it either, no matter what it is, the weather or the heat or the whatever, they just keep going. So I really admire them. They've taught me a lot too. I don't think they realize that.
Oh, they love you, Lora.
I love them too. So, so there is one little thing that I wanted to talk about. It's not a huge thing. And if there's anything we're missed that we've left out, please interrupt me, tell me, because I don't want to leave anything on the table here. But I do think that it's interesting, especially since we're talking about the Maggies right now. And most of the Maggies, well, not most, I don't know what the ages are. It's a wide age range, but some of them are older.
Right.
And I have some older men too that I train with. That sounds kind of weird, but there are older men.
Maggies are looking for some maggots? No. No, we won't call them that. What do I forget, magpies?
I don't
know. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't know. But anyway, my point in saying that is that there is a segment of the population, I think, sometimes that gets overlooked, which we just talked about in gun training. But also the other aspect of it, too, that we talked about on the phone yesterday is that I've been getting questions from older people, 60 and over, that are wondering, what can I do to stay in decent enough shape and fitness so that I can continue to shoot, so that I can defend myself if I need to. And I don't really hear a lot of talk about that. And I do think that that's important. I think that we sometimes exclude that people that are older, not meaning to necessarily, but when we talk about fitness, that looks a lot different to someone who's over 60 versus somebody who's 20. And so I know that's something that you've personally been working on. And you told me a story yesterday that was just like, I don't know, it's just really inspiring to me. So I wondered if you could share that with people, and maybe through your, what you're doing, maybe that people could get some ideas also.
Okay. So
you don't want to talk about it, do you?
Well, no, I don't mind.
Okay.
So I started realizing I'm in my 60s, and I'll be on Medicaid this year. But I started realizing that I'm out of shape, more than I'd like to be for what I'd like to do. So put it that way. Okay.
Yeah.
You always can get in better shape, but things I want to do, I don't do because I feel like I'm out of shape, and I can fix that if I want to. And I say I want to, but then I don't do it. So this last year in the fall, I have a new grandson who I love to pieces. When I came home, I was like, it's really hard for me to be on the floor and getting up. I had problems with my knees. How can I fix all this stuff? I need to start doing something. So rather than wait till January 1st, which is what I usually do, and then I stop by, I think they say the average is January 19th. The resolutions go out the window. I decided to start walking in my yard. So I made it possible for me to do what I needed to do within the means. Do what you can, where you are, with what you have, right? So, okay, so we made a trail in the yard. I started walking. I started getting up at the crack of dawn, wait for the sun, go outside. I was so proud of myself. I did it for like all through December. It was freezing cold. I loved it. All through January, toward the end of January, I got up one morning and I couldn't move. My feet were plantar fasciitis is what I have right now. So I was so disappointed because I had actually started running. I was doing some high intensity, like run for 30 seconds, stop and slow down and stuff. And then I was just like pouting. I was like, I can't let this happen. I'm not supposed to get in shape. Da, 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 da. I was like, no, you're not going to go there. You're going to get a bike and you're going to sit on a bike.
I love this.
You pedal your butt off. You're going to do with your feet. And because every time I would force myself, I'm just going to tough it out. I'll put different shoes on. I'm going to go walk and I'll be home, in 30 minutes, I'd be crippled. Yeah. And so, like, am I damaging it more? So I was like, all right, I can't do that. And so I decided to get an exercise bike, and found that like some of the muscles I'm using for that are actually being worked more than when I was walking. So lifting weights, doing things. So I encourage my women at Maggies to do stuff too, because they're all can't rack the slide.
Yeah.
You don't need to get a different gun. You need to just work the slide. You need to do little bits. Don't overdo it, because then you get hurt and then you want to quit. So just implement little things. And I'll say probably 80 to 90% of our girls are active, no matter what their age is. They're either on a rowing machine, on a treadmill, or what's that elliptical thing? I think that. And they love that they've gotten back into doing something physical, because it helps them in the shoot. And they see that if I do this, it helps me in my shooting.
Right.
And loving to come to shoot makes them want to exercise.
Well, and we talked about yesterday about how holding yourself accountable and keeping promises to yourself is really, for me, the biggest benefit of fitness. Like, I thought it would be feeling jacked and, ooh, I look good. And that's not it at all. It's all about what it does for my mental clarity. I'm a better mom. I'm a better friend. I'm more present with people. And I know that I have integrity because I keep the promises I've made to myself. And to me, that's been the biggest impact. And that has nothing to do with your age.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it could be anything. Even the dry fire, the women have really taken on dry fire practice and committed. They're getting tools to work with. They're setting up their rooms to do it. They talk about it all the time. So it's grown from just like, I want to learn how to use my gun that my husband left me for protection because I'm alone, which evolved into they live to come to Maggie's on Tuesdays. That is one of their highlights of their life. It's like, what? It's like 2 hours of shooting, but no, they love it. We love it. It's just the best thing. And I encourage anybody who is an instructor that maybe is, got a group of women, if you're able to, because you're not working full time or you have the time to do it, and you've got a group of women to rally around, find a range and just do meetups. We've got the armed women and we've got a girl and a gun, but this is different because it's a smaller scale. All of the girls have taken emergency first aid, RSO training. There's a plethora of courses that they've all taken. So kind of like we're all on the same page. We're at a little bit different levels, but for the most part, everybody's on the same page. And then they want to volunteer. So if there's an event in a local, range, something happened to women on target, they're already prepped to be helpers. And then they recruit other women to do the same, to get involved and find a group of people they can go shoot with, or take some classes so you can be confident to go to the range by yourself and feel safe. Because I think that's the biggest thing with women and some guys too. Like you talked about the men. I don't want to leave them out because there's been quite a few guys in the co-ed classes that I teach. And they come across like they're embarrassed because they think they should know, but they don't. And that's really not safe because they get embarrassed and they want to try to do it. But if you approach it the right way and kind of let them show you what they don't know, like they'll start shooting. I don't right away say, fix your grip, fix your stance, do this. I let them shoot and I'll say, hey, that's really nice. Can I show you something?
Right.
Tweak something. And then they get a tighter group and they're like, ooh, I like that. And then they'll listen. But if I just come right out, whatever, they don't want to listen. And
Right.
I've lost them at that point, and that's my fault, not theirs.
Yeah.
So,
Approach is really important.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Did I answer your question though on that other about?
Yeah. 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 No, I wanted people to know that you're leading by example, that you are always reinventing yourself and you're always seeking new training, new information. You're always trying to grow yourself and those around you. And so that's really the gift that you are, that you have been to me and continue to be the gift and blessing in my life that I just really appreciate. Ah,
Oh, Lora.
no crying on podcasts. And
Hmm.
you're the one that started it all.
Well, you have blessed me and your show. I've gotten so much information from everybody that you've had on the show.
Me too.
But most of all, I'm so proud and I'm so happy that you are in your niche and God is using you in a mighty way. And this is just the beginning. I mean, look at all the contacts you've had through your show and all the people that you're helping. And you're growing just as a person. You just have really blossomed, and I love what I see. I can't wait to see more. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
My little sister, my little daughter. I don't know. She's a little bit of my sister.
We can't decide if we're sisters or mother, daughter, what, but we are kindred spirits, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's what drew us together right at the beginning. Just a love for sharing and a love for helping people, I think, is what we have in common. And yeah. So thanks for taking me under your wing, and thanks for seeing something in me.
Thank you, Lora.
Are there any shout outs you want to give or anything like that?
threeforksmags@gmail.com if you want to contact me, if you're in the area and you want some training. If you're not going to train with Lora, then train with me.
Don't train with Trish.
I just basically work through Montana Tactical Firearms Instruction. Yeah. There's 2 of them out here, so make sure you contact the right one if you're looking for it.
You're in Three Forks, Montana.
Oh, yeah.
Where you are. Yeah.
Montana.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your time, Trish.
Okay.
I really, really love you.
Love you back.